Man given no choice over Trowel arrest caution. So this is a guy who's a little bit of an avid gardener, and I'm coming to his defence because I am also a gardener. I don't have a garden at the moment. I'm working on it. But he was arrested for having a bladed article when it was literally garden equipment. Now, having a glance at this gentleman, you can tell he's not a roadman. He's not a dangerous criminal. I don't mean to be mean to the guy, but I can tell just by looking at him that this man has never even thrown a punch in his life. Right? No offense, big guy. Right? But still, like, you can clearly tell that this man isn't dangerous. But he was arrested and charged by the police for, like, carrying offensive weapons when he was walking home from his allotment. Right? He'd just been doing some gardening. And the police cautioned him anyway. And there's even a theory that this is to get them nice white statistics up. Because the crime statistics at the moment look really, really bad for this whole diversity project. So people theorise that they're making like nonsense bullshit arrests on regular everyday white people when they clearly have a reason to be carrying these things so that they can get the statistics up. At least that's one theory. A man who was cautioned for carrying a bladed trowel in public has said he was given no choice but to accept the reprimand because police were unable to contact a solicitor for him. So the guy doesn't even have a lawyer, which means he's like never been in trouble with the police at all. Armed police were sent to challenge Samuel Rowe as he walked home from his allotment in Chorlton, Manchester, carrying the tool, a peeling knife and a sickle. The 35-year-old theatre manager, wow, how dangerous. Said he was held for 12 hours before being told he had to accept the caution without representation or face longer in custody. Definitely wanted those statistics up. Greater Manchester Police said Mr. Rowe had admitted possessing a dagger and was given a conditional caution which entailed advice about the law on the carrying of bladed weapons in public. The Keene gardener said he was terrified when the armed officers who did not draw their weapons arrived outside his home on 3rd of July because they knew for a fact he wasn't a danger. This is a theatre kid that does gardening. Right, again, no offence to the guy, but everything about him screams pussy. They knew that, yet they're turning up with guns. He said the officers were shouting at him to drop the knife. I said I didn't have a knife, and they told me to drop the knife again, he said. So I dropped my Japanese hand gardening sickle and a handful of privet that I just cut off the hedge. They turned me around, pushed me up against my house, handcuffed me so he was on his own property. Interesting. Then put me in the back of a van. Out of sight. Mr. Rowe said he was questioned by police while in custody, and it felt like they'd gone out that day expecting to catch some kind of lone wolf attacker. I was doing nothing wrong, he said, and that's right, he was in his garden doing some fucking gardening. They treated me like I had been doing harm to people. Mr. Rowe was carrying a Japanese-made trowel in its sheath, a small Japanese gardener's sickle, and a peeling knife, along with a trug of vegetables. So, the way the law is supposed to work is you're not allowed to carry these things in public unless you have a valid reason to do so. Like, for example, linoleum knives. If you're walking from your van to someone's house with a big roll of linoleum over your arm, it's very, very clear what you're going to do, what you're going to be doing. Right, and there's even guys, I know of guys that have been arrested while wearing tool belts. After work, they've had their tool belt on them with all their kit in it, and they go into a pub, and they've been arrested by the police. And I have another story at the end. It happened to a friend of mine. He said that the peeling knife was his... Basically, looking at him, you're like, right, he's got this stuff on him for gardening. Anyone with 2 brain cells could have told you that. Right, if I was a police officer and I saw this little... No offence again, mate, but pussy theatre kid walking with a basket of vegetables, walking down the street with his little trowel. He probably had them in the basket in the front of his bike that had a little bell and all that, right? If I seen that, I'd be like, the public are safe, right? We're all going to be fine. The guy clearly has that stuff on him because he's a fucking gardener, right? So basically, you need to have a good enough reason. They caught him in the middle of gardening, right? And they still fucking arrested him. He added, he said that the peeling knife was his late grandmother's, the sickle had been purchased a decade ago, and the trowel, which has a short blade and wooden handle, was a present. He added that he had not been aware of any warnings about carrying the tools in public. However, since his arrest, a warning has appeared on the trowel manufacturer's website. It said customers needed to familiarise themselves with offensive weapons law before carrying the tool in public. And yeah, the law says that you are able to do so as long as there is a valid reason reason. In his case, gardening. He was gardening. You caught him in the middle of gardening. He was holding vegetables. You're fucking idiots. We strongly advise that you keep this tool concealed, sheathed, and out of sight in public places, preferably in a gardening bag or toolbox rather than your belt, it added. It's clearly this gardening stuff. And I mean, look at the guy. Again, no offence, big man. Mr. Rowe said he had gone without any legal representation while in custody because officers had been unable to contact a solicitor for him. That's a lie. That's a really common trick. Oh, we tried to call your lawyer, he's not available. Lie. They do that all the time. That's one of the oldest tricks that the officers will play on you. He said he accepted a conditional caution, but was now worried it could affect his job at a theatre, where he sometimes had to work with vulnerable young people. Cautions are given to people on the basis that they admit an offence, but do not count as a criminal conviction, but it does still go on your little stupid permanent record thing. Some simple cautions are spent as soon as they are accepted, but others could be flagged up on standard and enhanced disclosure, barring service checks. That's basically your background check. These things do show up. When my mum and dad did foster care, a bunch of mine showed up. But again, it was just for fighting. And weirdly, they were really chill about it. They were like, sort of like, so no harm towards children. And I went, no. Then they were like, all right, that's fine then. And I was kind of like, what, really? Like, I've got like 12 cautions for fights. What do you mean? And they were like, oh yeah, it's fine. As long as it's not harm to children, then you're all right. And I was like, I mean, I'm happy, but I kind of feel like that's wrong. That should not be the case, but still, they were chill with it. What part was I reading? Mr. Rowe said he did not believe he had committed a crime and called for his caution to be rescinded. And I completely agree, he has not committed any crime of any kind. He added that he understood the police had a job to do, but was now scared to continue with what had been a lifelong hobby. GMP said officers were responding to a call that a man had been seen with a knife. He was subsequently stopped, and a small sickle, a large dagger which was in a sheath on his belt, that was the trowel actually, and a peeling knife were seized, the force said. He admitted the offence and was given a conditional caution, which entailed advice and guidance around the legislation of knives and bladed weapons in a public space. This entire thing was a complete joke, right? And a similar thing happened to a friend of mine. He likes to do a lot of bushcraft type stuff. He'll just basically go out into the forest, park a tent, and just do a bunch of bushcraft stuff. It's fun. Bushcraft's great. He's very, very serious about it. But he had a multi-tool. But it's one of the big proper ones which has every tool in it. And he was just off the path, and the police do patrol this area because there's a lot of people like to steal cars and abandon them in this area and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of, like, kids go out there underage drinking. So the police do patrol there. He had a little fire going, and he's sitting whittling a bunch of stakes because he doesn't have a tent. He basically uses a shawl, and he uses like the stakes for the tent pegs. He tries to go out with as minimum stuff as he possibly can. He forages mushrooms and everything as well. He's an expert on mushrooms, and he knows what he's doing. He finds his own food. There's a lot of fun. That stuff. But the police obviously saw his fire, walked over to inspect the fire. They were like, oh, we just wanted to make sure it wasn't like a wildfire or something. And he's sitting there with his tent up, his fire going. He's got his pot on the fire and everything. He's like, no, it's just me. I'm just doing bushcraft. They saw the knife in his hand, and they were like, drop that right now. And he's sitting next to the fire like, what are you talking about? And they got dead serious and went, drop it right now, and pulled their tasers out on him. I'm not joking. They then arrested him and charged him with possession of an offensive weapon. Basically, as soon as it went to court, though, they arrested him. He was kept for about like 6 hours and then released. It took about 1.5 years for it to actually go to trial. The judge took one look at it and immediately threw it out. But he had to go through that for 1.5 years. He also got it taken off him, and it was a big expensive one that was a present. I also know another guy who was a fisherman, and he had a filleting knife in amongst his fishing stuff, and he got arrested and he got charged. And then again, I believe again it got thrown out in court when it was like, wow, I can't believe you had a fish filleting knife while you were fishing. Basically, the police are very, very gung-ho about that stuff. Now, see if it's a little guy standing on a street corner with some fucking machete down his belt, then yeah, arrest that guy for being a little fanny. Right, however, if someone's literally fishing when they have a fish filleting knife, or they're literally doing bushcraft and everything, then leave them the fuck alone. The police are just far too gung-ho about this shit, to the point where they're even arresting little harmless gimps like this for doing a bit of fucking gardening.